Welcome to Timber&Terra. I am Glenn, and this is my new claw grapple. At least that's what Land Pride calls it. Similar to like a root rake. I've never used one before, but I do have a purpose for it. This particular one is a CGC 2072, 72 inches wide. 20 series in the Kubota or Land Pride. They're sort of partners, I guess. I did look at a 1572 and the 2072. They had identical specifications, and I really still don't understand why they carry two that are almost identical but different models. The only significant difference is the 1572 is made of grade 80 steel, which is like a 80 psi tensile strength or yield strength, and the 2072 is made from AR 400, which is abrasion resistant. That's what AR stands for, and it's much harder, and the yield strength is like 150,000 psi, so much stronger material. The price was very similar. The weight of the two are the same. The dimensions, the number of tines, the thickness of the tines is all the same. The weight's about the same, like within 20 pounds of each other. This weighs just under 1,000 pounds, like 970 pounds, something like that. So first use for me, my plan is two things. Primarily to sort of pick up where I have a lot of brush, where it doesn't make sense to sort of pick it up by hand. As I've seen on YouTube and other folks using it, you open the claw up and then you tilt the bucket forward, and then you use the top actually to rake. It works well to rake thick brush, and then obviously you clamp it and take it. I chose this one as opposed to the root rake or the rock rakes or rock grapples, which have, I think, longer tines on the bottom. Because those longer tines on the bottom, I think they can really cause havoc with a relatively lightweight tractor like the 70 horsepower there, where it'll dig into the ground, where this one has a much shorter. So it won't dig into the ground much. I think I can still use that as a sort of like a root rake in some applications. That's really not my plan, but it could be used for that. And also to pick up logs. Now, I do have a trailer with a log grapple, which is really nice. So I probably won't use it much to handle logs, but there'll be occasions where I'll pick up and move a log or two. Boy, the black flies are really, really hairy. So I'm going to try this out back there. There's a field to the left, and sort of there's an overgrown field there to the right where I'm pointing. Right now, between those two fields, there's the rock wall. And a lot of the brush that I have is some of the tree line trees, a lot of popple and red maple over there that I cut, that I left the tops in the field, specifically waiting for the spring, and this claw grapple to sort of pick that up. And my plan is to move it to this other sort of field, which I'm going to let grow up into whatever it grows up into, be a forest, probably mostly fir. But the first thing I want to do is make a hole through the rock wall so I have access from the field on the left to the field on the right. Now I'd have to come out into this field, go across and over, and it's really wet along there. But if I can make access through that rock wall, sort of between those two fir trees, the taller one to the right and the shorter one to the left, and that's either an ash or an elm in the center, I can't remember what. But in that area, it's relatively dry from one field to the other. So that's what I'm going to do. So before I can use this, and before I put it on the tractor, I need to get my excavator, which you can maybe just see the very top of it right there. It's on my road in a field to nowhere. And I want to track the excavator over to there and take care of the rock wall and see what we find there. So let's meet up at the rock wall. we have arrived. This is the good field, my retirement field, meaning I'm going to build a house in retirement for my retirement in this field. Rock wall all along here. And this is was a good field. It's rather small, but I've let it grow up over the years. I cleared a bunch of red maple, a few poplars, and you can see all the branches, all the brush, the tops here. And that's what I'm going to do, is just sort of use this as dumping ground for that. Just let it sort of absorb into the soil, and then trees will grow what may. I'm guessing it'll grow back red maple, poplar. I will probably control those and then let like fir or any other desirable hardwoods such as cherry, elm, or ash grow. One of the reasons I cut all these down, as well as where I'm going to get the tops from over there, is so I can take advantage of the decent view we have here from the retirement field. And so that little mountain range, that's Jay Peak in northern Vermont, and then I'm sure they all have names to the left. I don't know what they are. So I wanted to have some view of that from the sort of the crest of that little hill there, which is where I anticipate I'll build a house. So let's get working on here. So first, there's some big stumps. I think this is where I want to have this access from one field to the other. Over there, it's a little bit wet. Here is much drier. So I think I'll always have good access from here right along where I'm standing, where the excavator is. First thing I'm going to do is take down that's a root ball of a real junky tree. I don't know what it is. I think it might be a speckled alder, swamp alder. Sort of a brush slash tree that likes to grow in really wet areas around here. Let's take that out first, and then we'll tackle rocks and stumps here where I stand. Well, there it is, a hole in the rock wall. It works. Much soupier, much softer than I was hoping it was going to be. So I probably won't drive over that until it firms up a bit. But what I will do to try out my grapple rake is pick up all this brush here, see how it works as a rake for this rough brush, and over there, and see how well I can transport it, and probably just make a pile here to move off into that field at some later time. So you probably saw as I was driving into that field with the excavator several brush piles there, which I did sort of consolidate by hand as I was cutting those. I think they're mostly gray birch over there. But that area is really wet from basically there over to where this road is soggy, and we have to have sort of a little mini drought for that to be really dry and passable without making ruts. So we passed the firewood area as we walk back to the house. I actually did a cord by myself a couple days ago. It took a while. I don't know, I just didn't have the energy. It was a hotter day, which is the first several hot, humid days are not easy for me. It takes me a while to get used to it. Anyhow, each of these racks holds a half a cord. They're 8 feet long, 4 feet high, and I cut my wood 24 inches long. So I have enough there for next year, I think, plus with a little leftover I had for this year. I burn 10 to 12 cords a year. The other thing I noticed, difference between the 20 and the 15 series 72-inch wide, is that this is sort of marketed for a skid steer, even though they do mention an M series Kubota, as mine is an M7060. The 15 series really is just marketed, or their literature just shows it with a tractor, so that might be another difference, but I'm guessing it's just the abrasion resistance and the strength of this steel versus grade 80. A skid steer obviously is a lot more powerful, can put probably a lot more use and abuse to something like this. It's built nicely. It's a big, the primary frame here is, I don't know if it's 6-inch square tubing up down there, and maybe an 1.5 or 2-inch tubing up here. You can see the steps here are geared towards getting into a skid steer. So before I connect the third function hydraulics to this, I want to clean this up. This particular one was in stock in a nearby store, not the one right next to me. I'm guessing they probably had it in inventory for a year or so based on how dirty it is. It's just some simple lubrication to hopefully make it slide in a bit easier and maybe stop the surface rust there that started to form. Never had fun putting these on, even though they're supposed to be disconnect and connect under pressure. Really not found that to be the case. So what I just did there is turn my key on for the ignition, energize the solenoid valve for the for the third function, and just cycled that valve, and that seems to help. But on the attachments, well, this one I don't have any experience with, but with my other ones, if there's any residual pressure at all in the cylinders, or even the weight that the cylinders are holding, I'll often have to bleed one of these connections here. Boy, that went in nicely. I'm guessing they just did this for transportation. Obviously, checking the full range of this and problems with hoses, I ran into a problem with a hose, but I'm thinking this was just tucked in here. Just for transportation, it probably should come out here. So I will disconnect this, pull the hose through, and reconnect it. Fun, fun. Easiest task in the world. But it's not bad either, I guess. So it did seem to catch on here, sort of right there. I'll have to think about it. I'm thinking maybe a real stretchy light duty spring, maybe, to sort of keep it in that orientation. But for now, I'm just going to try it out, see what happens. Well, going that way is a no-go. So that's the wet area, sort of that area here on each side of the road that I was trying to avoid with my break in the rock wall. And that's why I could not make it up this little bit of a hill, so I need to take the high ground, which is where we are here. You can see that's fine. But this area here is one area or a bunch of brush. So as long as I can avoid that area there, I'll scrape it back towards us and see how it goes. Well, it's getting soupy there, or starting to spin, so I'll just take it easy and do what I can. But yeah, understanding the location of the tines, how far they're digging into the ground, is going to be the trick. The visibility is not the greatest. Using the float function, I think, will allow the tines to dig into the ground too much, but I'll play with it some more and see what happens. Well, I think I'll stop making a mess. So I didn't realize it was going to be quite this wet. I think it'll work really well when the ground has firmed up some. And the float function, I did play with that a bit. The float function actually does work. It's really a matter of what angle you have the tines at. It seems as though, and you can probably see it better than I could from the seat, but if you don't angle it down enough, it'll sort of ride up over this brush. So unfortunately, that's about the only trial I can give. I mean, this is a pretty quick pile I was able to make even in these horrible conditions. So I'll come back here when it's dried out and then move this stuff through our hole in the rock wall and over there, just sort of spread it over that field that I'm going to let grow up into some sort of a forest. Anyhow, thanks for hanging along with this particular project and this test. Appreciate your patience and appreciate you watching this video. Thanks, and see you next time.